Hey everyone, it's Badger here, narrating another video for Vadim. In today's video, we'll be looking at the hidden measures in GTA 3, ones that were implemented by Rockstar to protect their game from piracy. According to Obbe Vermeij, the ex-technical director at Rockstar North,
the objective was to avoid people copying the game just around the time of release. All big games got hacked within a couple weeks anyway.
To achieve that objective, Rockstar Games had decided to go with what was at the time a famous solution, Safe Disk from Macrovision, and Obbe's job was to integrate it into the game. Safe Disk has two layers of protection, copy protection and crack protection. The copy protection is achieved by encrypting the entire game's code, which makes it into unreadable gibberish. The licensed disk in the drive was not only necessary to play the game with, but it was also needed to reverse engineer the code. Crack protection is an additional and optional layer of protection provided by the Safe Disk API, which allowed Obbe to double encrypt certain functions of his choice in the game. And just so that we're all on the same page, it's going to be very important to understand what the function is. So let's take a look at this one in the game. If you press a specific button near a car, Claude enters it. This action was invoked by the function enterCar. Now let's imagine that we encrypted it via the Safe Disk API. Under normal conditions, the code of this function will remain encrypted even by having the licensed disk in the drive, but it causes no issue for the game to execute it because as soon as it calls this specific function, Safe Disk immediately steps in and decrypts the code. After being executed, the function becomes encrypted again. It happens on the fly, and it causes no visible lag for the law-abiding player. However, if the copy protection is absent or broken, then the game would simply crash while executing the code because there's nothing to decrypt the encrypted function anymore. This is how crack protection works. So whoever tried to crack the game not only had to get rid of the pesky safe disk, but they also had to track down and decrypt all 9 of Obbe's encrypted functions so that the game could read them without the copy protection involvement. And trust me, Obbe chose them very wisely, and just so you know, entering the car wasn't one of them. You might not remember this, but initially the crackers from Deviants actually missed one such infested function. By using the first version of their crack, the game will crash with this error message every single time you load a save. The reason for that is hilarious, by the way. Obbe encrypted the function crane's load, and unfortunately for the game crackers, they missed it. As a result, every single time the game tries to read crane data of all things from a save game, it immediately bugs out. No wonder why this made pirates mad. What made them even more mad is the following solution released on day 1 to attempt to fix this issue. I mean, good freaking luck finding a non-existing value in a non-existing path in the registry. In addition to that, in these instructions, Rockstar is misspelled as Rockstar. I guess the internet wasn't all that different back in those days. But anyway, after a few hours, Deviants had released the second version of their crack with an apology, but the damage to their reputation was already done because their first and broken no CD was spreading like wildfire. One way or another, Obbe's plan of putting a booby trap in the crane code worked flawlessly. However, sadly for him, the rest of his nasty booby traps were patched out. One of them was the function loading island screen, which is pretty self-explanatory. Every single time a player crosses an island, the so-called Welcome To screen appears, and Obbe didn't want that for the pirate. Doing the same thing, their game would immediately spit out a crash, just like that. It's worth noting that this is one of those sneaky measures that would screw up a pirate's game. It would only happen after a few hours of playing. The realization that something isn't right would only come during the mission Last Requests, when the player has to sail to Staunton Island from Portland in the Reefer. It seems that Obbe thought that the cracker would simply not play their game for that long to experience an issue here. It was also very crucial for the cracker not to miss the double encrypted function by the name of camera shake no position, which invokes the sudden and short camera shakes you occasionally experience in the game. It's used when you fire a single round from a sniper rifle. That's a nice touch from Rockstar to allow players to feel the power of this gun. Sadly, it's not nice for the pirate, because it renders this weapon completely useless. On the other hand, they can still use the scope and pretend it's just a pair of binoculars. Furthermore, the function is also used when you do a drive-by, but only in the first-person camera mode. So yeah, no first-person drive-bys for the pirates either. But the biggest blow for pirates is that they wouldn't be able to complete the mission Blowfish given by Tony Cipriani very early in the game. Because in order to make the scene with the exploding fish factory more exciting, there are 10 carefully placed camera shakes in a row, and you can't skip the scene. Thanks to that, the scene will freeze for the pirate at this exact moment. But hey, what can they do? Sure, the pirate can use someone's save game to skip the sequence that crashes the game to proceed further, but keep in mind it would still be kinda hard to play through several missions without a sniper rifle. Instead of picking off your targets from a distance, you're forced to run right up to them, or find a different and perhaps more elaborate way of completing your objective. And don't forget about the rampages. There are 2 involving taking out gang members using this gun. I'm not sure how the pirate would complete them either. In addition to those problems, the pirate can forget about completing the famous and controversial King Courtney mission, Kingdom Come. Every single time you see an explosion during the scene in this parking lot, camera shake effect is used. The pirate obviously will be stuck in the introduction scene. What can you say? That's a very clever way from Obbe to make the crash as unexpected as possible. Another surprise from Obbe was to encrypt the function Create Incoming Cessna, which would be yet another ticking time bomb for the pirate. This function is used only in the mission S.A.M, where it's responsible for creating the dead dodo and putting it on a hard-coded path to the airport for you to take it down and retrieve the Colombian goods. Yet again, it would be so irritating to realize that you can't progress further in one of the last missions in the game. All of that thanks to the fact that the game can't handle spitting out a now cursed plane into the world. Nice try, Obbe. Very nice try. Perhaps for the sheer joy of it, he also decided to break the last story mission, The Exchange, by choosing the function Start Catalina Flyby for a booby trap. Both a pirate and a law-abiding gamer would experience the famous ambush in the beginning of the mission. However, after you make your way out from the mansion, the game creates a helicopter with Catalina on board for you to chase down. This is something that the pirate would never experience after exiting the main gate. An error message is not the grand finale that they would have expected. But Obbe didn't stop there. He was also keen to entirely break helicopters in the game by encrypting the function Generate Helicopter. That function is used to send an annoying police chopper after you to gun you down while the pilot yells at you after you hit at least a 3-star wanted level. This is devastating for the game because the pirate is now forced to avoid hitting a 3-star wanted level at all costs, just to be able to avoid the game crashing, meaning that the game itself becomes very limited. Just think about it. It literally becomes less of GTA because there's a solid reason to not just go berserk, and you gotta be less violent overall. In addition to that, the pirate will have to constantly look around for the police bribe pickups. Not to mention planning more visits to Pay and Spray to minimize the risk of getting more heat. Sure, it gives a good challenge, but let's be real, that is a pure nightmare. However, if the pirate is okay with that, then they should be ready to forget about completing these 3 missions because by their design, they invoke enough stars to just nuke the game. Fortunately, all of them are optional and can be skipped. But either way, I can't describe how annoying it is to complete these missions in such a manner. You always have to find an alternative way to progress further until you hit a barrier. And the barrier is the mission A Drop in the Ocean, given by Donald Love. As you remember, he asks Claude to collect all 6 packages dropped by the plane. The obvious problem here is the 3rd package gives the player a 3-star wanted level, thus provoking a crash. It was such a genius plan to encrypt this function because no matter how hard the pirate might try to complete the game, they're gonna get stuck anyway. Probably the weirdest idea was to encrypt the function Play Replay from hard drive, which introduced a unique kill switch. If an ordinary player ever decided to watch their saved replay, then all they have to do is press F3 on the keyboard. But the pirate shouldn't do that. Pressing this button nukes their game instantly. Probably the least harmful measure, but nevertheless, a strange one. But look on the bright side. The instant replay feature still works for everyone because it's a different function. Remember how the encrypted function Crane's Load breaks the save game loading mechanism? Guess what? Obbe actually broke it in 2 different ways. If the function generic load is still encrypted, the crash would occur in the exact same place too, just having a different address given in the crash window. But not all of the crashes were designed to occur during some special conditions. By double encrypting the water level initialization function, Obbe made sure that the pirate won't ever be able to get in-game, as the loading bar is destined to freeze right here. This measure is brilliant for two reasons. First, Liberty City is surrounded by water, meaning the game can't just skip setting up its level in the world. Second, if the cracker can't patch this measure out, then there's absolutely no chance for them to release a crack. As you can see, Obbe chose what functions to encrypt and break very wisely. 1 breaks game initialization, meaning you have to patch it first. 2 break the save game loading mechanism. 4 affect free roam. Add 2 more functions to the list and you'll get 6 affecting the missions. Almost all of them are gently hidden, meant for the pirate to experience them only after spending some time in the game. And as Obbe said,
"The idea with my choice of the extra protected function was that there were a few of them that occurred infrequently so that hackers could miss them."
So the question remains, was it hard to break down safe disk in this game? Yes, it definitely was. In a nutshell, the cracker's job was to make a custom sophisticated software which bypasses a lot of the sneaky anti-debugging features that the protection additionally had. When the software was done, step 1 was to sneak it through the first layer of protection, copy protection. As funny as it sounds, if safe disk detects an intrusion at this stage, it immediately stops the decryption process and politely asks you to unload the debugger and try again. It will never ask this again in the future if you go deeper into breaking it. Step 2 was to scan the executable while it was running and list all of the double encrypted functions it found. Step 3 was to invoke every single double encrypted function with the working DRM to steal the decrypted code that it spat out. Step 4 was to swap the encrypted code with the decrypted counterpart. And Step 5 was to remove safe disk copy protection and test the game. However, there was one tiny catch. The function crane load was inside generic load, meaning if you scan the entire code just once, you would definitely miss the crane one. This is why, before getting to Step 5, it would be a necessity to repeat everything from Steps 2 through 4 again and again until there's no encrypted code left. Just so you know, all of that requires a lot of effort and high skill, and it was fairly easy to make a mistake. As Obbe mentioned,
"My thinking was that hackers would be in a hurry to be the first to get a hacked version out. The plan was to include a few subtle bugs that hackers would miss so that the hacked version would essentially become a demo version."
That is exactly what happened with the Whereas group deviants. They only went through the code once and saw that the game booted up just fine. Then they called it a day and expected all the glory. But in reality, they only released the so-called demo version and ended up making pirates angry. And what do angry people usually do when software doesn't work? Well, they might seek help. And even here, Rockstar wanted to play it safe. As Obbe said,
Rockstar New York asked for a list of these things so they could identify people calling for support on a hacked version.
I wonder how many of these people actually phoned or emailed Rockstar about having an issue with loading their save games, and I wonder how their customer service agents were instructed to deal with them. I also asked Obbe if he enjoyed reading through forums of people having an issue with that broken crack, and he said,
"I have no idea how often this actually happened. The internet was rubbish at the time, so it was hard to get a feel for it. Monitoring the hacked versions going around was something Rockstar New York was doing. I wasn't really involved with that."
Today, only some people would remember the issue with the broken release, not to mention this crack trove from the Myth release containing that specific version having this famous jingle. Alright, that's enough nostalgia for now. 5 weeks after the release date, Rockstar released patch 1.1, which entirely removed safe disk DRM from their game. Yes, it still asks you to put disk 2 in the drive, but now it has nothing to do with removed DRM. As easy as it sounds, now it's enough to just emulate the disk to play the game. As Obbe said,
"The protection was only useful around the release date. Once there was a fully hacked version out there, it made no sense to keep it in."
But anyway, you're probably wondering, was it really worth the effort to use and implement safe disk as an additional solution and encrypt all these functions? Well, yeah. As Obbe said,
"I think the company generally thought it worked well and had been worth the effort."
Because despite the fact that the game was cracked on the second day, do not forget that the Whereas groups always found their way to get licensed disks much earlier. The idea for Rockstar was to buy as much time as possible before someone inevitably cracked their game. Who knows how many enthusiasts might have ditched the idea of cracking it because of the measures and crashes that they had experienced. For more videos on GTA, Rockstar Games, and some other stuff occasionally, don't forget to check out my channel, BadgerGoodger, right here on YouTube. And myself and Vadim are both on Twitter, or X as it's known as now, so go ahead and give us a follow there if you're still there and if you haven't gone to Blue Sky yet. Anyway, this has been Badger, and I hope you have a great rest of your day out there.